Good day. You are tuned into Dark Talk with the Prodigal Son, a podcast that focuses on mental health issues. This is your host, Zamohle Masondo. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, for those who've been listening to Dark Talk on a regular basis now, this is about our fourth episode. I just like to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it. Keep listening, keep sharing with people who might be interested in listening to this. Your support means a lot to me. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. So, getting to today's show, the topic for today's show, or what we'll be covering, is the unpredictability of life and the randomness of tragedy. This is reflections on the death of Akhumzi Jezile, Siyasanga Kobise, and Thobani Mseleni. So, South Africa has been dealt a big blow. This weekend, Saturday, news came out about a tragic car accident in which former YoTV presenter and producer Akhumzi Jezile was pronounced dead. And his friends as well that he was traveling with, Siyasanga Kobise, who was a musician and an actor, and Thobani Mseleni, all prominent young South Africans, young artists, died in a car accident on their way to a funeral in the Eastern Cape. So when this news came out, oh my man, the country was in so much shock. I remember also looking at the news and the post that I saw this in. I couldn't believe it, how can someone so young be gone, and so I'd just like to say sincere condolences to the family. I send out well wishes to everyone who cared about Akhumzi Jezile, and to the family who's dealing with this right now. I'd just like to say we're praying for you and keep strong. And I think that this is a tragedy that hit us as South Africans, because looking at the person of Akhumzi, he was someone that was so bubbly, so energetic. Most of us who grew up watching YoTV, Akhumzi was such a bubbly person. Articles that read about him said that everyone who knew him loved him. And that's true, because he was young. He was bubbly. He had so much energy. He was a people's person. He got along with people, I do not know much about the other two people, Siyasanga and Thobani, but from the way they're being described, they were being described as amazing people, and you could see these are people that were full of life. And we look at that, and that's why firstly I wanted to address number one, the unpredictability of life in the show today. The fact that life is so unpredictable, in the victims that it chooses also as well, because we could not have predicted that someone so young, people so young, would have been involved in such, that they could have lost their lives in such. And when I saw that, I think it became a wake-up call to me, to tell me, and if you're a young person, I think this should be a wake-up call to you as well, to everyone, that life is unpredictable and that at any time you can go. It's no longer a point where we think that you're going to grow old, you're going to die in your old age, you're going to live. Anyone can be a victim to tragedy. You can lose your life tomorrow. And I think that's the reason why life, we need to cherish every moment. Cherish every moment. We need to live every day like it's our last. Because we do not know when our last will be, And it is this unpredictability that makes life so fragile and makes the pain even more, because if you expected something to happen, then you would emotionally and mentally prepare for it. But if you did not expect for it to happen, if you did not imagine, if you cannot comprehend, some of the new statement says that the family are failing to accept. The family is in unimaginable pain because they never planned for this, they never predicted it, but now they have to face it. And sometimes life is like that. So I want to address that in the show today. On the second half of the show, I just want to talk about the randomness of tragedy, and how not knowing and not being able to predict, how that affects us in dealing with tragedy. Let's just take a short break, and when we come back, let's deal with that.
No, 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 no. It's been too long and I'm lost without you. What am I gonna do? Said I've been needing you. So needing you. Saying who's been with you? Is your heart still mine? I wanna cry sometime. I miss you. Off to college. Yes, you went away. Straight from high school, you up and left me. We were close friends, also lovers. Did everything for one another. Now you're gone and I'm lost without you here now. But I know I gotta live and make it somehow. Come back to me. Can you feel me? Hear me calling for you. 'Cause it's been too long and I'm lost without you. What am I gonna do? Said I've been needing you. Ooh, saying who's been with you? Is your heart still?
Welcome back. You are still tuned into Dark Talk with the Prodigal Son. So before the break, we were talking about the unpredictability of life, and we were talking about how when things happen that you did not expect, when things happen that you did not prepare for, it becomes even more painful and it becomes more difficult to deal with. And I said that now we want to talk about the randomness of tragedy. And when this thing happened, it reminded me of a book that I read last year called Unspeakable. Get that book. It's a book that talks about pain, tragedy, and how we deal with it in the world that we live in. Written by an excellent author. And the author had a chapter in there titled The Randomness of Tragedy. And in there he addressed the question, why me? And that is where we talk about the randomness of tragedy, in the fact that life also chooses anyone. Or let me say the fact that when something happens to you, that is when you question, why did life choose me? Why did this have to happen to me? And those unanswered questions are the things that make life difficult, because none of us can explain why this happened to Akhumzi and his friends. None of us can explain why it had to happen now. It is random. There is no process of selection that took place. There is no logical reason why this had to happen, but it happened anyway. And this is what makes life confusing. And this is what makes the events that happen painful. And this is how we have to deal with the confusion that happens in life. And to accept the fact that we don't have the answers for everything that happens. And to make peace with the void that exists in us trying to figure out why things happen when they happen. Why do things happen to the people that they happen to? Because a lot of questions will circulate their mind. That what if they didn't go to the funeral? Maybe if they didn't go, then maybe this would not have happened. And I think one of the things that we need to realize about life and the things that happen is that sometimes there are no explanations. And all we are faced with is picking ourselves up after a tragedy. And for someone who suffered from depression, people will always ask you questions. So, how come you were depressed? Why were you depressed? What were the causes of your depression? People are always looking for answers. People are always trying to rationalize the reasons behind the things that happen. And I always tell people that as much as I can talk about part of the things that caused my depression, on a bigger scale, I realize that there's no explanation as to why it happened. There's no explanation and reason as to why it happened to me specifically as a person. But there is one thing I can do is move on. That's why another author talks about the fact that we create meaning. We forge meaning. Because he said that some people talk about finding meaning in the things that happen. But the reality is that we don't find meaning, because finding meaning seems to suggest that there is meaning and significance in everything that happens. Christians will tell you that if anything happens, it's God's will, yes, God had a plan, but the reality is that sometimes that's false, sometimes that's a lie. There's no meaning in everything that happens, but some author talks about forging meaning in the fact that we forge meaning, we create meaning ourselves in everything that happens. If ever there is meaning in what happened, it is because we attached meaning to it. It is because we decided that it can mean this, and we can formulate it into being something good, even when it is not. So in life sometimes we are faced with situations where we have to forge meaning out of the situation, because we do not want to allow the situation to crush and overwhelm us. But sometimes there is no meaning to life. Pain is random. It picks its victims anyhow, without any reason, without any cause. And we are left in awe and amazed and not knowing how to deal with the next thing. And the reason why I needed to talk about this, I needed to make people aware and prepare them for the life that we live right now. For the fact that there will be void. There will be things that we cannot explain. We will be left heartbroken, not knowing where to go. But it is dealing with the fact that life is this way that will help us move on. Once we realize that life is unfair, and that life is unpredictable, and that things happen at random, then we can make peace with knowing that it is not our responsibility to find the answers. It's not our responsibility to try and figure out why. It's our responsibility to deal with the tragedy, to make peace with what happened and move on with our lives. I don't want to say much. I want to say rest in peace to Akhumzi, Jezile, Siyasanga Kobise and Tobani Mseleni, and the other two individuals involved in the accident. I want to say to South Africans and the community, world community at large, be at peace. Heal. We will get through this. We do not have to formulate a meaning. It has happened, but we can make peace and move forward. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. It's the Prodigal Son.